Hello everyone, Pallytime here. Welcome back to Diablo 4. Today's going to be a pretty quick, short, and sweet video about my first impressions of the Barbarian. I got every class to level 25 inside of the Diablo beta, and Barbarian was one of the classes that started out the roughest. We were able to play this class the very first weekend of the beta, and I'm kind of glad because Druid felt even worse. And I'm glad I didn't experience that all in the same weekend, or at least Druid did initially. The early levels for Barbarian are very difficult to survive in, and we made a video specifically addressing those concerns. A lot of people were reaching out on stream when I was playing Barbarian, trying to figure out, what we were doing. So I wanted to make that video. Basically, anything you can do to stack up bleeds early on and just survive, any defensive bonuses early on, will help you thrive. But as you can see, at least I hope, once you get a few pieces of gear in place and get your build figured out, there's actually a lot of freedom to be had. And early game respecs are actually very cheap if you do need to respec. I think prior to level 15, it's literally just a few pieces of gold. So I was able to get through the majority of the early game with a very defensive setup, and then once we started to hit our 20s, I changed it up pretty drastically. There are a few builds that are performing well for the Barbarian right now, some focused around Hammer of the Ancients, some focused around Rend, and others around Thorns. The Thorns is probably the easiest to get going. It probably doesn't require any gear. You just stand there and take damage. However, I hate Thorns gameplay normally. Some of the standout talents for me would be picking up Flay into Rend relatively early on so you can build up as much bleeds as possible. There's also Rupture down here, which allows you to kind of detonate those bleeds on a single target. That could allow you to dish out a pretty decent amount of damage. I am kind of miffed by the cooldown on both Leap and Charge. It's quite long, and if we don't find a way of reducing these, I don't see a world where I'm going to be taking either of these abilities, especially in my Whirlwind setup. However, there are other passive movement talents to kind of help you close the gap, and some generators that can help you close the gap if you're looking for a way to do that. The thing I really had to get used to initially was Iron Skin. You don't want to just use it when you're full health because the barrier it generates is going to be pretty small. You actually need to let the enemies beat you up a little bit before you get any benefit out of that Iron Skin. So that can be a little weird to play around initially. I do think support Barbarian could be viable, which is very exciting to me. I thought Barbarian support was pretty unique in Diablo 3. It focused on gathering enemies up and providing buffs to your party while you did it. Those buffs are still here. We have a few of them, and we have some cool tools like Steel Grasp to potentially gather up enemies for our party, or where was the other one? Kick to potentially displace enemies and group them up together. Some cool, unique stuff there. If becoming super tanky is your passion, there are plenty of tools for that. Challenging Shout reduces damage by 40%. Iron Skin gives you that barrier. Rally Cry can also make you unstoppable and give you Fortify, but you don't need that for Fortify. You could look down here in the tree for Thick Skin, and basically every time you deal damage, you're going to be building up extra fortifications. Oh, and speaking of those shouts, there's the booming voice section over here. It's going to increase the duration of your shouts by quite a lot, but also heal your allies every second that they have a shout placed on them. That is actually so cool. If you do find that you're dying too much in the early game, I'd recommend just picking up this Combat Frenzy. This can be your main generator. It'll give you a little damage mitigation buff every time you swing, and you can see that just above the ability here. I use this for when I'm generating still because that's when I'm the weakest. Then once I have enough fury to actually start spending, that's when my character begins to pop off. There's a lot of people speculating that Barbarian might feel better once you find some gear, and I hope this is proof that it does. This class plays like an absolute dream, and the very first thing I recorded today was making sure that I explained how this Whirlwind build worked. So that video will be out on the channel pretty soon as well.
I'm not ready yet.
I guess the biggest downside to playing Barbarian is that you are almost exclusively melee, as far as I know. And a lot of these bosses can be very difficult to kill inside of melee range. I actually have a clip here. This is before I kind of got a lot of my power spikes, so this is not best case scenario Barbarian, to be sure. But this is me fighting basically a stronghold boss. Basically at any point, he could just start channeling this barrage of damage. If I was a necromancer, if I had my pets there, my pets would have eaten that damage. I probably wouldn't have even known that that ability existed. However, as a barbarian, that's a very different story. It took me so many attempts to kill this guy just because of the fact that I was in melee range and he could kill me so quickly. It was so frustrating. And that's just one example. That's just an example I had recorded from this weekend. There are plenty of cleaves, there's plenty of poisons that are going to be testing your positioning all of the time, and you never get a break. You have to accept that. There is a bit of a playstyle that has to accompany that too. This is a great dungeon to show that example off in, but basically, I'm always hunting elites. I never want to stop for just a couple enemies. I'm always trying to find an elite. Because if I do, it means I'm going to be generating more fury to continue the rest of my combos. Oh, shit! Oh, shit! It's the Butcher! Okay, I'm just going to keep my damage buffs going. We do have a shrine that's helping out as well. I don't know if I can mitigate Butcher levels of damage. I gotta be honest with you. This guy is literally intended to kill you. That is his purpose here in the video game. He will drop some more potions here in just a minute, but my fury generation is going to slow down quite a lot. I just got a new barrier. Let me max off. As the Butcher comes back in, we're going to potion one more time. My damage definitely fell. I might have to pull him to other trash, but there isn't any. Oh, this is actually very helpful. Just having a couple enemies here is very helpful. I used my barrier a little too soon there, and he ate right through it. There's one more post.
I'm not ready.
There's one more buff. I can do this. I can do this. Focus up. I can do this. I have another iron skin. Here we go. Does the Butcher start hitting harder as the fight goes on? Is he gaining stacks, bro? That's my last Wrath of the Berserk. That's all I got. That's all I got. Ah! It does seem like a lot of different playstyles are being represented well. For instance, if you like just spending like crazy, there are items to help you keep your fury cost. This might be really good for if you're trying to use something like Hammer of the Ancients to deal big AoE damage. That 35 fury cost means you're only going to be able to cast it not even 3 times without even generating abilities. So that would just help maintain that flow a little bit better. I was really worried that I wasn't going to like Whirlwind at all. That's kind of the skill I think of when I think of barbarians. This is the playstyle that interests me for this class. This is what I wanted to replicate. And at the beginning of the game, I had a very hard time doing that. But after we got some gear into our system. As far as where I would put Barbarian in the pack, keep in mind this was all during the beta. I imagine Druid is going to be heavily tuned up. At least I hope so. But I would say that Barbarian, actually, I think they're better than Rogue. I'd give them the number 3 spot right now. Maybe I regret that. Maybe I shouldn't rank these. Maybe I should just make a tier list video and actually think about it and not just hot drop that. Yeah, it seems like Barbarian is pretty good. I think Necromancer and Sorcerer are the overtuned classes for the beta experience. I really think Barbarian's in a great spot. And if this class released exactly like it is right now, sure, you'd have some growing pains in the first few levels, but those were pretty easy to overcome. If you want to see the build that we were running, I have a video dedicated to that. It'll be linked right at the end of this video. And I will see you guys again very soon. Thank you so much for being here.